This is a recording of my conversation with Boris Paskalev, co-founder and CEO of Deepcode, a Zurich-based startup. Deepcode is using machine learning to help improve the quality of programming code. We talk about the future of programming as activity and as a job, and learn how Deepcode leverages millions of open source code lines to help programmers write better code. I'm talking to Boris Paskalev, co-founder and CEO of Deepcode. Deepcode is a Zurich-based startup, a spin-off from ETH, the technical university here in Zurich. It aims to improve the quality of programming code by using AI to analyze it and suggest improvement opportunities. Boris, welcome. Please introduce yourself and Deepcode.
Pleasure to be here. As you said, my name is Boris Paskalev. I'm one of the co-founders of Deepcode. My personal background is I'm a software developer. I finished my bachelor's and master's in computer science. Then I worked as a developer for a long period of time. I slowly transitioned into project management, program management, and more on the business side. Now I'm kind of working as a CEO for Deepcode, which is highly technical, deep tech. And yeah, about Deepcode, obviously, as you said, ETH spin-off, commonly noted as the MIT of Europe. So it is the top technology university in Europe. This is where the whole idea and most of the research to enable the platform that Deepcode is started. Deepcode, in short, is what Grammarly does to written text. This is what we do for software code, which means is we help developers with augmented intelligence by combining the knowledge of the whole global development community into one system, and then being able to help developers write better software much faster and learn along the way. So ultimately, save them lots of time, enable them to deliver quality products at speed, and be able to focus their time on the creative part of software development and not on the things that usually developers hate, which is like searching for bugs, fixing bugs, reading code, dealing with legacy code, etc., etc.
Boris, let's start our conversation with a bigger question. Where do you think programming as an activity is going? Do you think programming will become to some extent part of everyone's life at some level, given the no-code movement, for example? Or will it stay as a specialized skill, a craft for trade experts only?
You're right. Ultimately, both of those things will exist one way or another. There is definitely a shift. And if you say that everybody using no-code programming are considered developers, then absolutely yes, then the number of developers will be growing. Obviously, not everybody's going to be part of it. There's doctors, there's lawyers. There will be heavy users of systems created by hardcore developers or no-code developers, or I call it like business application developers, like drag and drop boxes to get something happening. The trends are currently very obvious. The amount of developers around the world are growing. The actual demand for them is growing. They are highly paid, or actually we are highly paid. And despite of that, there hasn't been actually any major changes in the software development world from a revolutionary step. There's like small incremental steps here and there, but really nothing have like helped developer to be drastically more productive, to deliver drastically less bugs, etc. Ultimately, big data or big code, as I call it in our industry, is there. Just nobody has really tapped into it. 6+ years of research and 3+ years of actually building and rewriting the platform to be where we are today. So that's why I call it, it's a software revolution that we are starting. We will change how we develop code.
So what specific problems does Deepcode try to solve, and how big of a problem is it?
The problem is that software developers are wasting on average 30% of their time in searching for and fixing bugs. This is non-productive time, usually the least type of work, minus the meetings that developer report. How big it is? So lots of research shows, and it's a continuously growing number, and I'll give you an example in the US, that every year, 10% of the GDP of the US is lost because of software bugs. And this includes like actual time being wasted, not only for the developers, but for the business managers, loss of revenue, and loss of customers, legal fights, people actually suing companies because something did not work, or a plane crashed, or a rocket crash never landed on the moon. Those are also expensive projects. Like just the lunar landing recently failed because of software bug. Those are projects that cost you like easily $250 million to $1 billion a pop. It is a huge problem.
So how does Deepcode work, and what is the technology behind?
The high-level description of the technology is simple, right? Again, trying to learn from every single fix ever made by software developers on a deep semantic level, understand what the problem was and how it was fixed. So collect that in one big bucket, and then try to use powerful machine learning algorithms to extract what are the most common problems people fix and how they fix them, right? From that, on top of that, you can actually build additional predictive machine learning algorithms to actually predict what categories and type of problems exist that might never have existed yet, but could exist one day. And obviously, from that, you'll be able to actually get their solution as well. And ultimately, this gives you a huge knowledge base that is currently designed and it's working in real time. That actually tells developers as they develop new code, hey, what you're doing here seems to be wrong. We can explain to them what is wrong, and we can give them examples how other people have fixed it. So really, in a matter of seconds or minutes, they can actually fix that without even actually committing it to the source code or ever facing customers. So this is called the shift left movement, where if you actually any of those problems actually hit customers, then we already talked about how expensive it is. But if the developer can see it on the spot as they're developing it, then the cost to fix it is $10, $20, $30, like 5 minutes of their time. And it's huge savings. In addition, developers actually learns what the problem is semantically, and they'll never make it again. So not only they actually prevent the problem, they actually learn and develop as an individual.
So where is the data coming from? The data that Deepcode uses to actually learn about bugs and to learn about how they're fixed?
Yeah. So we originally started with open source, like the most common things. About half of the world code is right now open source, which is great, and the trend is growing. So from that, we've actually built the bulk of the knowledge base. And now as we go, we actually have large private companies that actually have been giving us access to their code base history, specifically because they're doing very custom operations, and they might not be examples in open source that are actually applicable to them. So in this case, we can actually extract the knowledge from them as well, the exact same way we did it from open source, and then we can actually have knowledge that is very specific for them. But ultimately, I'd say the majority, like 90% plus of the code right now, of the knowledge right now, comes from the open source community. And this is the main reason why we're actually fully free for the open source community, and we will be like this forever, because the more it develops, the more knowledge we get, gets better and better for everyone.
Who uses Deepcode today, and could you share some success stories?
As I said, we're mainly focusing on the open source community right now, and many people that actually have their code base in the cloud. We have an on-premise solution, but we actually use this just with R&D business partners, like very large companies that share their code base and they benefit from it, or when we actually want to test some of our new features. This will likely change in the next year, but as of right now, focusing on open source and specifically companies that actually keep their source code in the cloud, because for them there's zero effort to start using us. You just log in with your GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLab account, and here you go. That's about a month ago when I looked at it. We had something like 80,000 different open source repositories subscribed for us to continue using us. That excludes the IDE integrations, like the developers using it on their own. And in those repositories, that usually represents something more than 2.7 million contributors. That represents anything. Like if you look at it, there's developers from any major tech giant in the world, any industry. We had automotive, telecom, ICT, finance, medical.
So how do companies actually use Deepcode today? Now I understand obviously if you're in the cloud, that's easy, but what about company that has programming on-premise or large teams on-premise?
Cloud, single login, you can do it. It just takes you like less than a minute to start using it. We also have a public API and command line interfaces, because the modern development work cycle and setup is pretty much like a very complex plumbing. Each company has its own type of plumbing, connected many different services at different stages. So that's why having a flexibility to do anything, it's great. For the on-premise, as you said, which is usually, I say, 95% of companies with more than 100 developers still have a self-managed on-premise version. And on-premise could be private cloud as well. And for there, we actually have on-premise solution. It is pretty much the same server that we actually serve now for the SaaS customers. They just install it locally. It takes about 20 minutes, and you get the exact same results, same integration, same command line interface, same API.
Boris, final question. So what do you think is the future of the job of a programmer? Is coder becoming the next blue-collar job, meaning ubiquitous, secure, and somewhat the backbone of the economy?
To some extent, yes, but as I said, it is a spectrum, right? So you still, even today, have still mainframe developers, which are very different from front-end JavaScript developers, so it is quite a range, right? And almost the range extends further with people that just business code development, like plug and play. The range is wide. I think that the core of the development will continue, as we've noticed. Every single company is a development company today, so that's why the demand is growing. That will continue for a little bit. I mean, will one day we have an AI of AIs that can actually do a large percentage of the coding done today? Yes, but there is always a but. The intellectual and the creative part of software development will stay there. Sure, when I was a developer 10, 20 years ago, I was writing my own sort functions and arrays and whatever, right? Today, that's just packages. There's packages for everything. Going forward, the packages will become even larger, right? So the abstraction level of development will move levels up, right? I want a website. I mean, there is no need for you to know HTML or Vue.js or just anything, right? You can just have the website and you can just draw it on a napkin, take a picture. There's some startups that do that. I've seen it recently. And then voila, the code is written for you. So this will happen more and more. So most of the tasks that used to take a developer lots of time to do will just disappear, right? They will be automated. But that will allow developers to really focus on much more complex things. I think I usually use an example of if you want to build a mission to Mars. Today it takes hundreds of developers years to develop that, extremely slow process, etc. I'm not going to say how many years, but maybe 5 to 10. You're going to say, okay, I want to build a mission to Mars. And your augmented intelligence or assistant will tell you, hey, I don't know how to build everything, but here's a module that we know that works how to launch things from Earth. Use it, we know it works. Maybe it's SpaceX developing it, maybe it's NASA, maybe it's somebody else. So many space companies now. Then second thing, it will tell you, hey, there is a module that actually how to navigate between the stars. That's your next piece. Congratulations. And there's a landing module, right? It actually works perfectly for Mars because it's kind of a common thing. And then a single developer should be able to connect those in a matter of minutes. And then he actually have a mission to Mars. Call it in. Test it, obviously, because things are there. So automatic testing will definitely develop. We've seen and perform ourselves some research in the space. We'll be able to just develop much more complex systems, much faster, and hopefully considerably more robust, which is the goal. There are always going to be problems, right, on the next and next levels, and they have to be continually being solved. And this is where the development world will go, and the focus will have to be.
This was great. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.